Hi guys, so how are we doing today? It seems like my bangs can never decide what shape they want to be in, but today we're going to be talking about Bernie Sanders. I've expanded this channel to include some economic stories since I've been expanding my understanding of economics a lot, and I felt it was time to put that to use and to really comment on this sort of thing. Now then, Bernie Sanders gets a lesson in what a $15 minimum wage would mean. But the campaign workers complaining about their union negotiated salaries are being hypocritical too. Senator Bernie Sanders is the first and foremost a politician. As a politician, he is responsible for setting rules that govern how the other Americans must live and work. He's got lots of ideas about that. One of his ideas, one of the more popular ones, considering that a version of it passed the House of Representatives this week, is that workers should be paid no less than $15 an hour, regardless of what agreement they and their employers might have otherwise reached. But Sanders is also an employer. As a presidential candidate, Sanders is in charge of a national campaign operation that employs dozens of people, along with many more unpaid volunteers. But despite what Sanders believes other employers should have to do to treat their employees fairly, his campaign does not offer a $15 per hour minimum wage. Hypocrisy much? It sort of reminds me what happens when Congress pushes health care bills that they themselves aren't even on. Kind of makes me think of that a little bit. Some of his employees aren't very happy about that cognitive and fiscal dissonance. They intend to send a sternly worded letter to campaign manager Faiz Shakir in the coming days. The Washington Post reports many field staffers are barely managing to survive financially, which is severely impacting our team's productivity and morale, says a leaked copy of the letter. It goes on to say that field workers cannot be expected to build the largest grassroots organizing program in American history while making poverty wages. Some background. Sanders' operation announced in March that it would be the first presidential campaign in American history to have all low-level employees represented by a union. The contract that the union signed with the campaign promises $36,000 in salary and full health care benefits for the lowest level field workers. The workers now say they are earning less than $15 an hour. When you calculate how much they make while toiling for 60 hours or more each week to help get Sanders elected. But they agreed to be paid a set salary rather than an hourly rate, so the criticism should be taken with more than a few grains of salt. They joining the union didn't quite go the way they planned. Still, it's telling to see how Sanders' campaign responds to the allegation that the Vermont socialist is not putting his money where his mouth is. In a statement, Shakir stressed that Sanders' campaign offers wages and benefits competitive with other campaigns, as is shown by the latest fundraising reports. Exactly. If Sanders' campaign can find a sufficient number of employees willing to work for $10 an hour or $12 an hour, that's fine. No one is being coerced to work for him, and he's paying what the market for field workers allows. Sanders, the politician, likes to criticize other employers for doing exactly what he's doing. Well, of course. Hypocrisy is the name of the game when you're a politician half the time. And when it's not, the more honest politicians either get thrown out of office or even straight up assassinated. JFK. But more to the point, not all employers can manage a $15 an hour wage. In fact, the minimum wage itself has actually killed many a business starting out because they can only have so much money at first. And if they've got so many employees that they have to pay a certain minimum to, well, that stretches them real thin. And they have to rely on investments in order to stay afloat. And there's no telling when those investments are going to come, if they come at all. Because admittedly, it's ultimately investments by the rich that guarantees that new gross product is invented, thus raising the country's GDP. But sometimes many businesses will get lost in the shuffle. Not everyone gets those sweet little investments they need. And further, if we look over here at an article on the Pelican Institute for Public Policy, a minimum wage increase could actually make a state less competitive. Simply put, if the minimum wage is increased, do not assume that low-paying jobs will be all that is at stake. The repercussions could be much greater. In the South, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky do not have minimum wages above the federal minimum. If a business relies on a large number of minimum wage employees, will it locate or remain in Louisiana when so many other states in its region have lower labor costs? If a business relocates, that puts all its employees at risk of losing their job, not just those making minimum wage, and if a business is looking to open or expand in the Southeast, the plans depend on many low-wage employees. Even a minor increase to Louisiana's minimum wage could send the state to the back of the list. Losing business and jobs certainly will not lift people out above the poverty line. Plus, you're only going to see a marginal increase in effect on the poor, as only 22% of minimum wage earners live below the poverty line. So, it's literally a waste of time. Anyway, to finish off this Bernie article, Americans should not be subsidizing the richest family in America, and Walmart workers should not be living in poverty, Sanders tweeted last month. Castigating the big box retailer for not paying all workers $15 per hour. Walmart's greed has got to end, he added. And greed doesn't exist in other economic systems? But Sanders, the employer, surely knows that paying field workers $12 an hour instead of $15 per hour will allow his campaign to hire more field workers. He's not employing those people because it makes him feel good to do it. And he's not paying less than $15 per hour because he's a skinflint multimillionaire who's too greedy to care about workers. He's employing them to help him succeed in a highly competitive area where small margins can make a big difference. When the problems of the government mandate minimum wage are so obvious that even a socialist campaign can't help but acknowledge them, it should probably make you wonder if Sanders, the politician, is being willfully ignorant about one of his centerpiece proposals. And I would say that he is. Either that, or he's just being the typical politician and being a hypocrite, which is so common these days. Now more than ever, it seems. Although maybe it's just because I'm more aware, and then maybe this is the kind of thing that's always been going on. Who can say? But higher minimum wage means fewer employees. That means an increase in employment and an increase in spending for the companies. Why can't these politicians, these government redistributionists, get it through their thick skull? It's not that hard to understand. If you ask me, Bernie Sanders is a liar and an idiot, just like AOC. Only I think AOC's worse on only AOC's worse in both areas, both the stupidity and the dishonesty. Anyway,